This is a very captivating working theory. The quality of life is directly quantified by your biological capacity to create life. In that way, your fertility as a man equally mirrors your reality's fertility. It's a really interesting way to kind of look at it. That the capacity to which reality can bear your children or bear your ideas, it's another good way to look at it, is in direct consequence or parallel to your capacity to create life in another woman. It is an interesting comparison to make between these sexes and how the quality of their biology mirrors their fertility. So often you see women go through this almost untouchable golden era when they go through puberty. And I would typically say that this stage in their life is their 20s. This is their peak, right? If you ask all men, regardless of age, what age range do they find peak attractiveness in the opposite sex? It's that, isn't it? It's the 20s period. So women going through these particular stages in life, they're almost untouchable. So interesting to observe very objectively. These women, they get everything on a plate. You know, if you're even just mildly attractive, even if you're a 5, you're going to get drinks bought for you. You're going to get individuals. I have a friend, she'll remain nameless, and she will find humor in me saying that perhaps she's not the most conventionally attractive girl, right? I think she's good looking, but conventionally, if you're going to compare her to the individuals that you see on Instagram, she's not that. And then she showed me her DMs the other day, and I was absolutely shocked. Men asking to buy things for her, send her money, be their sugar daddy. Unbelievable. And I'm thinking, if this is just happening to my friend, who again would say herself she doesn't have the most symmetrical face, what's it like for somebody who is in that box, as it were, the typical IG model wannabe? Suffice it to say, women in their 20s today, they're playing life on easy mode. And I think it is in direct parallel or consequence to their ability to bear children, their fertility. And this all goes back to my working principle. It's about how much life you can host in your body. Really think about that. Everything that we talk about on this channel and other channels, they're in direct consequence to your body's capacity to host life. And I'm just referring to my notes here. In essence, why is there such a seemingly steep drop-off for women after menopause? Now, granted, this isn't always the case. This would be perhaps at least predicated by my own observational data. So as women move past 30s, maybe into 35 and then into their 40s, there's this, it's like a roller coaster. There was this big peak and then suddenly things, the DMs aren't popping anymore. Attention starts to wane. And there comes a time, and men will be familiar with this if they're at least on some level acquainted with red pill kind of content, that women start to settle. They've had their time with Chad, or the Chads plural, during their 20s. And then they're starting to realize they're not getting the same attention from Chad moving into 30, 35, 40. So they'll settle for John, who wanted her in her 20s, but she was too busy with Chad. But now she's thinking, I've had my fun. I'm going to settle down, because she knows she doesn't have that kind of draw, because her fertility is waning. Her capacity to host life in her body is on the decline. It's an asset that isn't very, very high at the moment. It is easy to deduct the reason for this being that this age range demonstrates the highest visual value in women. Okay, we're talking about the 20s. Those more astute among you will realize that this physical attractiveness is influenced by the fertility. So, of course, the trite saying wide hips, ample bosoms are indeed nature's finest ways of saying I'm ready to bear life, and that the chances of offspring are higher with these individuals. If we just talk in terms of basic facts here, it is at least in part interesting to me to evaluate the differences in mate selection with our from our ample bosomed friends. So if you go on the other side of things and you ask women what age ranges do they find attractive, they're not going to say men just in their 20s. They're going to say in their 30s, typically older, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. And it is my belief that this is in least part to the idea that men have the capacity to create life, I mean, almost indefinitely. I mean, let's say, there's been recent accounts of men having children well into their 60s and even early 70s. And you can start to see where the connection with practicing sexual mastery, celibacy, and SR comes into play. That the equivalent for women, like if you ask the average man, if you ask me, what do you find attractive in women in terms of physicality? Wide hips, ample bosoms, things like that. It is a signifier of utility. What then is the equivalent for men? What is the female's equivalent of ample bosoms and wide hips in men? It's going to be heightened masculine characteristics which are associated with an endocrine system that is functioning optimally, with androgen receptors that are expressing testosterone to the height of their ability to do so, which is in turn influenced by what? Your body's capability to host life, your level of fertility, your capacity to hold that life in your body. And this is not a theory. I believe this is a fact. Speak soon.